Hello and welcome back to my channel. I love Scooby and I do love Scooby Doo. And while it has been a while, I definitely have had this video in mind for a while. And in this video, I'm going to be ranking every episode of the Scooby Doo Show. Scooby Doo Show from 1976 to 1978. This show was the unofficial sequel to Where Scooby-Doo Are You, as well as the show that came after that, the new Scooby-Doo movies, where they had a bunch of celebrity guest stars. And it followed the same format as the other two, even if they didn't have any guest stars on it. But other than that, it was pretty much almost identical to Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Without each episode was about the gang. You can go being in a specific location, finding a monster, solving a mystery. Basically, the regular formula. And as you can see, I've set up my tier list. Mostly different from my usual, since this time I have this one up, I don't remember. Like, as much as I do remember almost everything about Scooby-Doo, I don't have the best memory. I mean, all the animals out there that say that they have, like, a very little attention span, yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. But when it comes to Scooby-Doo, I have almost a perfect memory. And I do, but almost being the word to focus on. And the episodes are actually going to be represented by the monsters from them. Mostly because, like, if I did the title cards, it would all pretty much look the same. And the episode I'm going to be starting with, it's going to be starting with the demons from underground. This episode was definitely, I'm going with iconic for this episode, especially since it had the unique concept of there being a city underneath Seattle, city being Old Seattle, New Seattle, stuff like that. That was definitely unique, since there's not a lot of locations like that, switching between above ground and underground. Also, I really enjoyed how there was the fakeness of there being three demons, despite how only one of them was a person in a costume, the other two being the statues from the Wax Museum. I also give it extra points for the trap that the gang used to trap the demon, with how they use other monsters from the Wax Museum to make the demon believe that it was the one being chased. I think the only thing that kind of loses like a point or two on was like the whole like the two disguises of the villain who was the demon. Like, other than the demon, he was also pretending to like be a sailor, and it really never made much sense in general for that. But like, other than that, like, the episode was really good. But with that little tweak is why it's not in Beyond Approach. The Beast from Below. Yeah, that episode is meh. I always found it just like a kind of bit boring. Like, the monster was never really that special in my eyes, especially since you have other sea monsters that have been much more, I don't want to say creative looking, but definitely ones that have had more like uniqueness about them. Case in point being actually this one right here, can't remember its name, but I remember the legend about it and everything. I remember the legend about it and how it had said to have the ability to take spirits. Like, that was definitely made it more unique, other than more unique than the Beast from Below. Also, it didn't really make much sense, because like in terms of like other types of like the bad people that were unmasked, like and this one being how it was a girl that only Shaggy and Scooby had met. And while it does gain like a couple of points for that, since that would mean that Shaggy and Scooby were aware of who she was while the rest of the gang wasn't, that makes it kind of lose a little bit of point for. I never liked it when it was people that the gang have never met, since like it makes them seem less important as a whole and not really someone that makes sense as the person under the mask. Also, like I wasn't really completely sure what their goal was. Like they were draining the lake for whatever reason, so like the episode itself was both confusing and kind of boring. Ooh, but speaking of one that's not boring, definitely the Gator Ghoul, Beyond Approach, mostly because of Scooby Doo. Almost every time we've met a member of any family member of the gang, it's always been a good time. But with Scooby Doo, like there's so much adorableness to that when you have that super long like handshake or whatever dance, whatever the greeting that Scooby and Scooby Doo did, like. It makes me smile every time since there's obviously a bond between the two of them. Also, I always enjoyed the scene of Shaggy and both Scoobies making the funky fritters, especially their reaction to all the intense spice. Like, if there's anybody with iron stomachs, it would be those three. But I also definitely enjoyed the play in terms of how they had Kooky Cola instead of Coca-Cola, and the Finoki Fizz being the original soda. Mostly because like I kind of doubt there's any type of connection between them. Like obviously Kooky Cola was a Coca-Cola reference, but Finoki Fizz not really, unless they're trying to make it seem like it's Fanta, even though it's definitely not. And also, I generally enjoyed the Gator Ghoul as a whole, especially since they brought it back to be one of the final monsters during the Cyber Chase movie. Oh, this episode, the Warlock of Wimbledon, not my favorite. Like, I enjoyed the tennis player character. You know what? I'm actually gonna move this to her, right? Mostly because like. One of this episodes is ones that make it work where the gang does not personally know the person that they're helping. Like Jimmy, the tennis player, he's not a close friend of theirs. He's not a family member. He's just a person that the gang met, and the gang decided to help him with the Warlock. But like really, the Warlock itself, like he's really not really anything special, especially since like. The demon hound that he had, that was the best part of his character, but like, I don't know, the design, this mask he has, like, it looks ridiculous. And plus, if there's one thing that always confused me was when a new staff would appear after another was either thrown away or broken. Like, that never made much sense to me because, like, how exactly does he know when a staff is broken or thrown away? Like, does he just have cameras everywhere, like, around the house and around the property, and that's how he knows? And he's just always paying attention? Yeah, that never made any sense. But as I said, the Demon Hound definitely gives him a couple more points, since if anyone saw it, that was definitely almost like a Scooby-Doo version of Cujo. You know what, I'm actually gonna get rid of this row, because like, I honestly do actually remember every episode of this, so there's not really any of them that would be in the I don't remember category. But definitely, I'll honestly admit, as much as I love Scooby-Doo, and that's why there's no like bad episode category, I'm always going. There's some that are just like, you know, just kind of meh and alright. You know, if the others are definitely always going to be good to Beyond Approach. And speaking of Beyond Approach, the Ice Cream Phantoms, literally one of my favorite episodes in Scooby-Doo history. Like, case in point being the fact that they're ice cream phantoms, strawberry, vanilla, and chocolate. That adds such a uniqueness to them, despite how their design is obviously based off of the Phantom Shadows from Scooby Doo Are You? And, like, normally that type of thing would make them more kind of boring, but it's the uniqueness of them being, based off of ice cream that makes it better. I also really enjoyed how a lot of the times red herrings don't really work because they can add too many suspects to an episode as a whole. But this time they only had one red herring, it being the owner of the ice cream factory, who the gang found out was faking his injury when they saw him running, even though he had a cast on his leg. Even though that ended up being, that cast being, he was hiding his own personal money. Although, it just made it funny when Shaggy was pointing at him saying he knew that the guy was guilty. Like, Shaggy, I love you, but you're not the detective of the group. You're comic relief, and we all love you for it. And I also generally enjoyed the scenes that took place when first Shaggy and Scooby and then Scooby with the rest of the gang were trapped in the freezer while Shaggy had been out pretending to be the chocolate phantom. Like, first it being just Scooby and Shaggy trying to stay warm, they started a fire which started the sprinklers that turned to snow, and then the snow just kept coming. Like, I love it. Yes, that was an actual risk to their health, but at the same time, it was definitely still funny. On to a more mid-range episode, I'm going with The Ghost of Merlin. Yeah, that episode, I'm gonna put it in good. Mostly because, as someone who does really enjoy most things about Camelot, especially since, I love the show Merlin, and Morgan Le Fay is one of my favorite fictional villains of all time. But that also just makes me question that the evil ghost is Merlin. Merlin is literally one of the most well-known good guys in all of fictional history, along with King Arthur. So the fact that they made Merlin the evil ghost never made sense, especially since also in the episode they had the fake ghosts of the Round Table. They were literally turning all these good characters into the villains of the episode, so that's why it's down here in good, since I did not like that it was an evil Merlin. Although other than that, I definitely enjoyed all the effects that were caused by the piano that was played whenever Merlin would wave his wand. I also liked the hypnosis part where Merlin put Shaggy and Scooby under his quote-unquote spell to hypnotize them and try and get rid of the rest of the gang. That certainly made some very amusing moments, especially when Shaggy was almost dumped in the moat and then they were almost crushed by the chandelier they released. Shaggy and Scooby, there's a reason why you two are part of the good guys, because if you try to be bad, you're not going to be very good at it. You're both too pure for that. We all love you for it, and that's why there's never going to be anything that involves you two being the bad guys. Even though we technically had Velma as the bad guy when she played the ghost of Cleopatra. Although, I also put it in good instead of alright, because Uncle Shagworthy, or whatever Shaggy's uncle's name was, he was definitely fun. The whole uncle, nephew thing that Velma kept saying, it was very cute, especially when it was revealed that he kept his prize jewels in the refrigerator. If he wasn't already very clearly a relative of Shaggy, then that would have been the biggest point to show that he was a relative of Shaggy. Ooh, The Ghost of the Fortress. Yeah, that episode, not my favorite. Especially since the villain was not really anything special. The beginning episode was kind of promising with how Shaggy and Scooby ended up being scared by the lightning, even though they had just been told that whole lightning doesn't strike twice in the same place. But after that, the episode itself kind of went down, while it was clever for like the treasures to all be hidden in fake cannonballs, like other than that, yeah, just like the episode itself was not really anything special, and the ghost not really one that I would be scared of, even if there are scary moments for other episodes and their monsters. Although speaking of scary, with the Harem Scarum Sanitarium, that episode was iconic because as a child, I was legitimately terrified of the Mad Doctor. Every time his laugh scared me almost as much as Space Kook's laughter did, and every time he would appear and disappear with the lightning, that made me scared of thunderstorms for the longest time. Everything else about the episode was also really good. The only reason it's not in Beyond Approach is mostly because, like, the idea of just like a ghost doctor, I just think is not the most original thing. But other than that, the episode is really good, especially when it also had some of the best comedy moments. Like, first you have Scooby and Shaggy hiding in that room from the dogs that are being controlled by the piano. And like Scooby apparently had hidden the pile of wigs, and when he was starting to come out, Shaggy said it was a monster, only for Scooby to appear out of the collapsed pile of wigs with a wig on, and he did his iconic Scooby Doo line while doing a very funny feminine pose. And he kept that pose going because when Fred, Daphne, and Velma entered the room, Fred was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, madam," only for Scooby to giggle, and that immediately gave him away. Like, it became a running gag in the Be Cool Scooby-Doo series, where Scooby definitely enjoyed his more feminine side, with how he definitely did enjoy wearing dresses every now and again. Although with this episode, it made it very, very funny. I also, in terms of like horror, the elements where it's like the corrupt cop has become a trope on its own and very boring in the horror world. With how this episode did have like the ranger guy being the Mad Doctor, that was a very good twist, since not a lot of the times is like a policeman or any type of like officer like that being the bad guy, even if maybe he wasn't a real ranger, policeman, or whatever, but he might have. So yeah. That was about those. Yeah, Beyond Approach. Especially since this also had a scary moment that like terrified me as a child. It wasn't the ghost itself, since like his design is not exactly really that scary, especially when you compare him like to the Mad Doctor or the Demon or even the Gator Ghoul. But what terrified me as a child was the story that was told by the mayor about Volkner and his death or disappearance, whatever it was. So it's like every time I watch that episode, like I get flashbacks to when I was a kid and very scared of that little story that was told. And plus, other than the scary part, there was another very funny moment where after Scooby, Velma, and Shaggy had ended up in the secret tunnel from the pet shop, there was a moment in the tunnel after they got locked in when Shaggy had called out through the tunnel, "Anybody there?" And the echo literally responded with "No!" Like, that makes me laugh even to this day because of just how funny it is. The trap also, I think, emphasized kind of like how in the earlier series, you had Shaggy and Scooby definitely having more brave moments, and this episode having one of them. So when the two of them did not really even seem to argue about being the ones that would basically guide the 1,000-volt ghost to the police station using the sled and the anvil with the magnetism. Like, sure, the two had definitely had scared moments, especially when the giant snowball formed, but other than that, like, yeah, they do handle that situation very well. I definitely miss when they have some of their more brave moments. Like, as funny as they are when they are complete cowards, like, back then, like, their characters were just more than just, the one layer of hungry and scared. Ooh, Katazuma. That episode, yeah, I liked the episode. It was great. Like, it could have been better, but that's because, like, nowadays I just remember, like, just some more confusing or just, like, just faults about the show. Like, like, sure, yeah, the stone monsters down here, yeah, that definitely could be very scary, but, like, I also, like, with the stone creature, like, it didn't really make total sense as to why the stone creature was really around. Like, if it had been set up like Katazuma maybe, like, having some type of power over statues, or if it was said, like maybe the stone statue was almost kind of like maybe something sacred to Katazuma, that would have made it have more sense as to why there was a stone creature on top of Katazuma. But, like, there wasn't really much of a connection made other than they were both the villains of the episode. Another little thing that I noticed was the barge that was the ghostly barge or whatever that was supposedly carrying the gods down the river. There was like 4 little guards that were on the boat, and it was really never explained if they were possible minions or if they were just like mannequins or statues that were being used by the husband and wife that ended up being the villains, and then to like make it seem like it was guards guarding the gods on the boat, but like, other than that, like, there wasn't really anything like explained in terms of that element. But other than that, like, the episode was still like really good, especially since like the design, how the husband and wife that were the bad guys, how they were able to create the giant footprints, like using the giant ghost hologram as a distraction. That was good every time, especially since like that could not be the easiest thing, especially the time where they had to do it literally in the middle of the road, which was probably a lot easier to do that with the grass. Another thing that I had enjoyed was the little part where the gang had to use a bunch of reflective, like, brass, either shields, pieces, plates, whatever they were, to, like, unlock a hidden passage in the pyramid. That was definitely very good, especially since it was more different than the cliche trope of like either pressing a brick that was on the wall, which most of the time is done when you have like secret passages in a pyramid or old building or whatever. Another part that I had enjoyed was when Scooby actually had gone to lure the two of them toward the trap, where like the funny way he was moving and taunting them, like, Scooby will always be funny and adorable, and that was definitely one of his moments. Another moment being when they were cornered between the giant ghost of Katazuma and the stone creature out in the jungle, forest, whatever. And Scooby distracted the stone creature by putting on a record, putting on a sombrero, and doing a little dance. And at the end of his little dance, he jumped up and slammed his sombrero over the head of the stone creature. Like, Scooby, you will always be the best cartoon character ever created, especially in terms of talking animals. You will always be number one in my eyes. Okay, let's see, the Highland Ghost. I'm gonna put that in alright. I think the episode would have been better if the Loch Ness Monster had not been a part of the episode. Especially since the episode was taking place in Scotland. I think it's a little bit of like a cliche and overdone, where literally anything involving Scotland like has to involve the Loch Ness Monster. Like, just because you're in Scotland does not mean the Loch Ness Monster has to be involved. Especially since like that monster fit a lot better in the Loch Ness Monster movie of Scooby Doo. Especially since like that movie had some very good twists with how there were multiple Loch Ness Monsters. But with this one, like, definitely, like, it would have been better if there was, like, maybe something else that the ghost was using to, like, ship his, like, illegal watches and stuff. But, like, yeah, it's not a man mostly because, like, even though I didn't want the locks in her part, it wasn't the main focus. The Highland ghost was the focus. And, like, he definitely was, like, creepy. He had a very good, like, creepy / scary aura about it, like, and it was definitely understandable why, like, Shaggy and Scooby were very scared of him. Like, I probably would be scared of him too if I ran into him. I'd hightail it out of Scotland as quickly as I could if I ran into him. But, yeah, I'm moving it up to good. Like, definitely is better than Edwin, my first few opinions of it. And this was also another episode that explored Shaggy and Scooby's competence, since they were the one that found the 1,000 wristwatches clue, even though they had been trying to just make marshmallows during the time. But that's part of their charm, where they accidentally find clues and they ended up being really important. And yeah, the little joke that happened where, like, Shaggy was wondering who would want 1,000 wristwatches, and Scooby's answer was a centipede, that makes me laugh every time. Oh, a monster that is as iconic as Halloween itself, the Headless Horseman. There really is no other place for him other than iconic, because he's such a classic monster. The only time, like, it's not a Beyond approach, because like the Headless Horseman is, he's the Headless Horseman. So how later in the episode when he had taken Elwood's head, like, that part, no, I didn't like that. I think it would have been better if, like, instead of, like, appearing, wearing Elwood's head, it would have been better if, like, maybe more the Horseman appeared, like, with seemingly having, like, a body, like, strung up on the back, strung up behind him, so it's be more like he was kidnapping Elwood to take his head later. But, like, stuff that makes the episode also good was the return of Scooby Doo. Like, as I said before, like, the family relationship between Scooby Doo and Scooby Doo, like, it will always be adorable, which was only added to with this episode with how Dum and Doo were sharing the horse costume. And another part that also makes them a very funny pair was when the gang was on the way to the airport, because they had figured out, like, of course, who the horseman was, and that he was going to get away using a plane. Shaggy's little line where he's like, "Old headless flies, isn't he bad enough on a horse?" And then you have Doo and Dum just, like, they stick their heads out and start looking up as if the horseman was already flying. They're very cute and very funny. I also actually liked how there was also the connection with the original tale of Sleepy Hollow, with how the friends that they were with for the party were related to Ichabod Crane. Like, sure, it's not, nobody really knows if Ichabod Crane, like, ever had kids, but I'm going to ignore that in favor of that I enjoy the fact that Ichabod Crane, like, has descendants. Oh, Scooby-Doo, Where's the Crew? That was a great episode. Especially since, like, I actually enjoyed how fun it was, and how, like, Captain Piscato, along with the kelp monster and the octopus monster, I enjoyed them following the gang around secretly and locking them in rooms all around the ship. That was something that's not really done before. Like, usually with the monsters, they're just chasing around the gang and, like, maybe sometimes trapping them in a room. But, like, this is the first time where it's like the monsters actively go out of their way to lock doors while remaining hidden, rather than chasing them into rooms and then locking doors. So that definitely gives them unique. I'm not gonna put them any higher, mostly because, yeah, while there was a tale of the captain, like, his tale being that he has sea monsters, like, compare them, like, I don't really think a kelp monster is technically a sea monster. Like, yes, kelp comes from the sea, but, like, I think it would have been better if it was, like, like, maybe another shark monster, or, like, maybe it was, like, the captain with two octopus monsters, right? Because, like, I don't know, I don't think the kelp monster really makes sense as much of a sea creature, especially since, like, his design kind of makes me think of, like, maybe a thinner version of the tar monster. And probably the only reason why they didn't have it as another shark, as a shark monster, was because of the shark demon episode. This episode also, like, kind of gives, like, a little bit of hints as to the gang's age. Like, a lot of times we don't really know how old the gang is. Like, we know they're old enough to, like, for Fred to drive, and, like, for the other characters to sometimes drive as well. But this one actually kind of gives a little hint that they're at least maybe junior or seniors in high school, since they're helping their teacher with this exploration. Like, sure, you could also, like, maybe be a college professor, or maybe they're just, like, helping, like, maybe a former teacher. But yeah, this is the closest kind of episode we get to having hints for their age. Mamba Wamba. That episode, yeah, that's another great episode. Like, it's not hard because I lose it a couple of points for the fact that the random zombie that was a part of, like, the little group, like, before, like, Lila was revealed to be another zombie, but, like, that was the other zombie had a literal identical design to the zombie from the Which is Which episode, other than obviously different color palettes. Like, even though, like I said, with the ice cream and goes, like, they need to be more unique than if they have a identical design, even if the colors are different. But the zombie was just, it wasn't really anything special. It's just a thing that, like, grown, chased after them, but, like, other than that, like, wasn't really anything special about it. Like, at least Lila as a zombie, she was still talking normally and calling Mamba Wamba master, but the other zombie just didn't talk at all. Other than that, I enjoy how the gang was friends with the rock pop group. I think their name was later revealed as the Alex Super Experience, like, from what I remember was said about them from the Franken Creepy movie. So yeah, even though, like, I personally didn't really like the Mamba Wamba song, maybe if they had revealed the full song, I may be able to understand why Lila and their manager wanted to steal it. But, like, other than that, like, yeah, that just gives us a plot. Like, they could have just, like, signed a contract for, like, their music as a whole rather than just the one song. Because, like, one song is only going to be popular for so long. Like, ask any musician in the world, like a single song can only be popular for so long before, it just becomes another song that, like, people can enjoy sometimes, but it's not going to be as popular as it had once been. Ooh, but another one that's beyond approach, I loved the Menace in Venice episode. Like, the ghostly gunleader design is another that I really loved, especially since, like, with the whole his face basically hidden with the hood. I love that, since it does add a very good aura of creepiness to him. Especially as well as how there was, like, some scenes with him where there was, like, some lighting and color and changes to it to, like, make it almost seem like a Scooby Doo horror movie that gave him even more creepiness to him, such as when he had gone after Daphne since she had one of the medallions and he captured her. It was also another funny thing where when Shaggy and Scooby, they had almost actually rescue Daphne, since they had planned to cut the gondolier off. But like one little scream roar from the gondolier, and those two hightailed it out of there so quickly. Sorry, Daphne, but if you want knights in shining armor, Shaggy and Scooby are not the guys for you. It was still funny though. I also generally enjoyed their friend Antonio. Like, he was a very good character, especially since it was because of him that the gang realized actually who and why the gondolier was who he was, and like why he was doing it, since it was his family tree of the green eyes that led them to his friend when they found the remains of an old contact. I also enjoyed the secret treasure of the old king. Definitely enjoyed that, as well as the actual flashback that showed like the origins of the gondolier. That was a very good, since there very rarely are like flashbacks to like the origin stories of the monsters. The only other ones we've seen for like origins would be like the 10,000 volt ghosts, and even the demons are underground, since there was the flashback of the wizard banishing them underground, even if that was just like an old story of them rather than like an origin. Oh, the Witch Switch episode. That was another good episode. Like, I'm not saying it was boring or bad, but like, it just wasn't really the best episode. Like, there are some definitely very good scenes, like Shaggy and Scooby being mistaken for witches, or a witch and his minion. Like, that was very good, especially since like the idea of townspeople once again like being sent into a witch hunt frenzy. Then I think that does actually have some realism to it, since there are points where yeah, people can like get kind of scary around any type of magic. Like, what people don't understand, they fear, and what they fear, they try to destroy. That's basically the entire like point of Salem. Like, they saw women behaving differently than usual, so they immediately blamed witchcraft. So that part was good, but like, I don't know, like the witch itself, like not really anything special. And the idea of a literal evil twin who did this like out of jealousy, yep, no sense at all. That was, I think they were like trying something new with this episode, but yeah, that it was very confusing. It was not a very good plot, especially since like even if they're like, you know, their friend that they were visiting, where they saw the Gemini like on her birth, like it doesn't make sense for that to be there. Yes, Gemini is the twins, but like just because somebody is a twin doesn't mean that their birth sign automatically becomes Gemini, because like that all stuff relies solely on when a person is born. Not like if they have a twin, they're automatically a Gemini. Especially since like, what if they have a triplet or the quadruplets? Like, yeah, there's not a special sign for 3 or 4 babies born at once, or anything more than that. So yeah, the Gemini thing, total just a hint at the secret twin. Jaguaro. That was a great episode. Especially since like this was probably one of the few episodes where there was more than one antagonist. Not only did you have the Jaguaro itself, but you also have the headhunters that have been after like the gang anytime they were aware of them being around. That added a secondary threat that most episodes don't have, especially since the headhunters were not they were not really they basically worshipped the Jaguaro as their own sacred animal while still being scared of it. Like, they were still a human threat, despite how, just a human threat. And plus, like, I like the original design of Jaguaro. Where it is, the Jaguar's head, gorilla body. That's very unique, even if it can be I don't know. They could have like added more blending to between the jaguar and the gorilla rather than just it being such a big obvious difference between the head and the body. But for the time period of the show, yeah, it's a very good design for them. Especially since they're definitely the very the obvious color differences. That was definitely a big thing during that time, since it was probably not the easiest to blend colors and make more fading type stuff. Was a little too advanced for that time. Another part that I liked where there was that little scare in the beginning that the gang had when how the plane did have to have an emergency landing, even if that was faked by one of the pilots. And speaking of the pilots, I also liked how it wasn't both of them that were a part of the plan. It was just one of them along with that boat person, Barry, I think his name was. And where it was a rule where one pilot tied up the other one to basically have him hidden until they were able to take off. I definitely so it was good where not everyone else involved was a bad person. It was just which is usually what's done, where everyone else is a villain and just the gang and a few other people that are the good guys. The Demon Shark in the Foggy Dark. I think it's an iconic episode. The design of the Demon Shark was, not exactly the most creative. Everything else about the episode was very good. Especially since, it was actually reminded me a lot of the Caveman episode from Where Are You? Since the Demon Shark was, as had with the caveman, there was a real frozen caveman, just as there was a real frozen shark creature. But the caveman and the shark they were obviously hidden away, while giving hints that they were melting. Even with the Demon Shark, it was more confusing during that part, since the gang had already run into Demon Shark. So what was the point of showing the melting of the cube at that point? Because if the shark was already supposedly free, then what's the point of showing this current one melting? But even with that, with the beginning of showing it melting, and then revealing the stolen pearls, that part was good, so it makes me forgive the later little mistake for that part. I also like the entire the spellbook Wild Goose Chase, where it ended up where Shaggy and Scooby thought that they had the spellbook, but it was just a cookbook. I like it when the gang is just sent on little chases for that, and it's actually almost kind of like a accident when they solve the mystery, since it's during the little side quest when they find the actual clues. That makes it a more unique story than just a straightforward searching, spreading out, clue finding type thing. Oh, the no-face zombie. Yep, I'm going with Beyond Approach. Especially since just with the Doctor and the 1,000-Volt Ghost, I was actually genuinely terrified of the no-face zombie when I was a kid. Where it came to the point where I could barely watch the episode because of how scared I was of the zombie, despite, obviously, even back then I knew it wasn't real. But that also shows, they did a really good design and a really good, character for the no-face zombie. Even though I does actually lose a couple points with the inclusion of the gorilla, since that made absolutely no sense at all, when obviously they could have just simply had the doll maker person, instead of dressing as a gorilla, he could have just dressed as the no-face zombie, and basically it make it there were two of them running around, or maybe just get rid of the robot and just have him by himself as the no-face zombie. That would have made a lot more sense than dressing up as a gorilla. But even with that, I love the episode too much to put it anywhere than Beyond Approach. especially since like I enjoyed like every real chase scene like around the dollhouse, especially since like, there was the constant back and forth of who had the golden galleon, whereas like sometimes it was the gang, sometimes it was the No Face Zombie, sometimes it was the gorilla. There was a lot of back and forth with that, which I really enjoyed. Another point I enjoyed was near the ending, when after the policeman showed up and another chase scene started because the No-Face Zombie got back the coin. You had Shaggy and Scooby on the forklift, scissor lift, whatever that was. You had Fred, Daphne, and Velma on that other cart. Like, I enjoyed how it's like literally just the cop and the zombie running around while everyone else is on wheels. Like, that makes me laugh every time I watch that scene, since like it really is very funny. Even if, yikes, if that had been the doll maker dressed as the No-Face Zombie, that would have been very bad if Fred, Daphne, and Velma ran into him. Even if, I don't really think he would have broken anything, but like, maybe he could have gotten a concussion. But you know what? You're just a zombie. Carly's gonna come to get back you for that. The vulture creature. Well, no, the praying mantis creature from Vulture's Claw. Forgive me for that mistake. Like, obviously, with the Vulture's Claw thing, that made it a little confusing. I'm gonna put it in alright. It's, as I had said before in previous things, like, scapegoats can work and also not work. Like, with this one, there were, I think, at least 3 scapegoats, but, like, and it turned out to be none of them, and, like, literally none of them actually suspected the actual person who ended up being the praying mantis creature except for Velma. But she's Velma. She's always gonna figure everything out, even if the only reason she was able to remember was reasons to figure out was because the professor had tracked, mud in the house. But, like, if he had said that he had tried looking for them and failed, and, like, if he had said that rather than that he couldn't find his code, Velma probably wouldn't have figured it out. But other than that, like, yeah, it was actually funny when it turned out to be literally none of the ones that anyone else suspected, and it was just Velma that was right. But, like, I don't know, yeah, as I said, the scapegoat thing didn't really work, even if it did equal that funny moment at the end. Although, with the ending, after everyone, like, literally only one person, like, really came in normally during that whole it wasn't me part. Like, literally 2 other people, like, came out of, like, a secret passageway and from the clock. Like, that made no sense. Like, last time I said, they made the scapegoat red herring thing a little too much during that part. Because you literally got 2 people coming out of secret passageway and then one person just enters through a door. That was just weird. Although, as usual, they also had the classic damsel in distress Daphne moment, where she was taken by the praying mantis and captured in a shed. Like, you never really can go wrong with having a danger-prone Daphne moment. Like, that's a part of her character. Like, it's always going to be a part of her, no matter what. Like, even though nowadays, like, she can be pretty badass, like, she still has her damsel in distress moment, because, like with Shaggy and Scooby's hunger and their cowardness, you can never escape being a damsel, Daphne. We love you, but we also love seeing you in distress, and Danger-Prone Daphne is a very fun nickname. Ooh, Iron Face. He is another iconic monster bad guy. Especially since, like, he was actually another monster that came back for the Cyber Chase, along with Gator Ghoul and actually Jaguaro. I forgot to mention that before. But yeah, Jaguaro, Iron Face, and Gator Ghoul, they all made their reappearance as other monsters at the end of Cyber Chase. It was like, and plus, it was actually also very, I liked his entrance with the sharks. It added a very good, like, scary aura around him, even if they were just like little fake torpedoes disguised as sharks. Even if they also can equal a little confusion. Like, obviously in the first scene, since there was more than one shark, that was probably during a time where when Mama Mione was having her rich clients, like, getting them back to shore by hiding them in the torpedoes. Like, that was probably why there were so many sharks at that point. But, like, if there was another scene like that, like, again in the future episode, like, it didn't really make as much sense for that. Although I think after that, it was only just the two that she was using as skis. Like, so yeah, after that first scene, like, I don't think they used more than those two ski sharks after that. I also enjoyed how it's like, this is where it was another character being in distress. Kind of like where other episodes where it's like if the gang is going on like a tour or something and their tour guide like goes missing and never shows up. So yeah, I enjoy like characters like that, especially since like it gives Daphne a break from being the damsel, where it was instead Captain Moody, I think his name was, or yeah, I think that was his name. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. I might not be, but as I said, I do not have a 100% memory. But like, I also, as much as the whole Skull Island was cliche, it probably would have been better if it was just, you know, a prison on an island, almost kind of like Alcatraz. Like, that probably would have been better than just like having, you know, once again, a cliche Skull Island. But yeah, it was still, there definitely was actually, it made for a pretty good way for there to be, you know, the secret luxury hotel underneath the prison, since like there was probably a lot of like cave space like in the actual skull of Skull Island, which was where the hotel was most likely placed. So like, yeah, they made that part made sense, even if maybe they could have just had the island on a hill, on a big hill, or a mountain or something, instead of just having it Skull Island. Although speaking of Skull Island, the Gramps the Vamp, he was a great vampire. Especially since like I actually, while others wouldn't enjoy it, I liked the more bright like color palette that they had for him, with like, you know, the purple suit and like the bright reddish pinkish like bow tie and cape. I enjoyed that part of his character rather than just, you know, being a cliche like all black or like a suit with cape. Like, there's a different design than most vampires, so it made him more unique. Plus, like, as I did with it during the beginning part when I said I call him Gramps the Vamp. Like, Shaggy's nickname for him during that part, I love it. It's why I always will call him Gramps the Vamp, since he was supposedly the grandfather of the gang's friend Lisa. Plus, just like with the Headless Horseman and the Gator Ghoul, Scooby Doo once again returns. Like, obviously people seem to enjoy him better than Scrappy, since Scooby Doo he's both similar and also different from Scooby. Like, when you have Scrappy, he was a little too different. Like, you know, he was the very brave, heavy power and stuff like that. But with Scooby Doo, like, yeah, he had his cowardly moments, but at the same time, like, he was still braver than Scooby, where he had the whole dum-dum-dum-dum moment where because like it was revealed how he wanted to be a police dog in the Gator Ghoul episode, and he still had like little moments of that where he would go off like either maybe to fight the villain or search for clues, and it made it very, very, very cute for his character. Especially since like he was another part where that made it funny with the vampire, like when the vampire went after Scooby-Doo, Velma, Scooby-Doo, Shaggy, and Scooby-Doo, and the vampire shouted that he wanted blood. Shaggy was like, he wouldn't want his, it's yellow. Like, that was very funny. And it was also, I think with Scooby-Doo, he first, like, you know, he had a little bit of a yikes moment until he just referred to, like, his usual dumb side where he was like, like, Scooby-Doo, yeah, he adds so much comedy to when he's around. I also enjoyed another part where it's like, where they had, like, all the coffins, like, in the room. Like, that was definitely, like, that would probably be a very big horror movie moment if Scooby was more horror than mystery comedy stuff. But like all those coffins being around and the chasing between all the coffins, where it was really those three going around under the carpet from coffin to coffin. That was very fun, and I honestly probably would love to like have a game of hide and seek like that, even if that's a little morbid since you would be hiding in coffins. But hey. At least it wasn't a Final Destination movie where literally probably something would come crashing down on the lid and like that would be it for me. But then again, that's why I prefer Scooby Doo over horror. The one that I mentioned earlier, the monster that like stole spirits, that was another great episode. Especially since like it was another one where I did get scared. But not actually of the monster. It was after he stole the captain's spirits. Like the look on his face when he was still sitting in his chair, that genuinely terrified me, and I kept looking over my shoulder a lot. Like after watching that, and it actually kept me from rewatching the episode for a long time because like even as I got older, like until I was like 13, I was still scared of the episode. I also liked how the monster was not just one person. Like they could have easily just like had like maybe the captain replace him with like some type of dummy for like his stolen spirit instead of being a brainwashed minion. He could have put on the suit, but instead they had him, of course, being the mind-controlled minion, with the monster being an escaped convict. I liked how it was the idea how the monster wasn't just one single person, how it was a continuously changing like villains since it was being used to help prisoners like escape, since nobody would really be looking for a supposedly legendary sea creature as the escaped convict. Especially since like you had like the clue of the homemade cell key that hinted that the monster was a escaped convict. Like that was definitely very. It almost actually kind of like had similar elements to Iron Fist, with how both episodes revolved around criminals being part of the entire operation. Oh, the Witch Doctor with the Bum Steers Scooby Doo episode. That was another good episode. Another one that had a relative of the gang. This being Daphne's cow rancher uncle. A lot of uncles with a lot of the gang. Like definitely when it comes to like relatives, they mostly go with an uncle. Case in point being Uncle Shagworthy there. Like a lot of uncles. So, with this episode, like, there was, like, a few, like, things that, like, can definitely keep it from being either iconic or great. Like, one thing being, like, like, with the Witch Doctor, like, there have been quite a few, like, Witch Doctors, like, around the show, like, with Decoy for a Dog Napper, and Mono Tiki Tia. But, like, both of them were more... Definitely they were unique in their own way. And with this Witch Doctor, it was another, like a Native American themed kind of Witch Doctor. But I preferred the other one from Decoy for Dog Napper since it definitely looked more like Native American, and this one is like all white with just like really just the mask that made him more look like the Native American like designer that he supposedly had, but really, other than actually, with the combination of that mask as well as the structure made in stone in the side of a mountain, like that did make it a lot like Decoy for a Dog Napper, especially since like both episodes with this one and Dog Napper, it was about like it was about animals. This one was about cow hustling and the other about obviously dog napping. So when you compare them side by side, yeah, this episode was just not as good as the Dog Napper. Even if the whole Ghostly Bull thing, the Ghostly Bull was a lot better than Geronimo. So that's why it's in good rather than alright or meh. Ooh, the Ozark Witch. they put in alright. Like, not my favorite, but also not really a boring episode. Especially since, like, the girl that ended up being, the witch, her name, Annie Wilkins, she was returned, like, in a live-action form when they had her being a part of the villains that were at the bar club place in Monsters Unleashed. So she was there, as well as C.L. Magnus, who was Redbeard. Definitely like how they had like characters like that, having like little Easter eggs of like past villains, other than just the costumes. They also had the villains themselves. But other than that, there wasn't really anything like really special about the episode. As much as I like the little callback to the little feud, like the iconic Hatfields and McCoys, like that wasn't really much of the episode. Yeah, there was the last names, but like there was not really any real references to that feud. Especially since like apparently this witch was supposedly the last of the McCoys or whatever. And like the other family was like apparently the last of the Hatfields. But other than that, like that didn't really make much sense. Ooh, the Disco Demon. I'm going with Beyond the Pressure that, because like along with like these 3 episodes, this was another one that actually scared me as a kid. Like the Phantom, even if like his title being the Phantom was not very creative, especially considering his design, which they could have just called him the Disco Demon, or as the episode or the title is, Disc Demon. That probably would have been a much better name than just the Phantom. But like other than that, little flaw, like the Phantom like genuinely was another monster that terrified me, especially with his voice, where it was almost kind of like somebody was like speaking through an old like voice changer thing, almost kind of like a more staticky version of Ghostface's voice thing from Scream. And then this is another episode where it's like, with this episode being about the gang's like musician friend Jimmy, another Jimmy, other than this one, but I prefer this Jimmy. So it seems like he was definitely a lot more fun. The episode itself was very good, with like the song being the actual name of who was the Phantom. Even if it did confuse me a little, because like that was another like little flaw that I noticed, even if yes I'm keeping it in Beyond Approach. Like the little flaw being how the song that the demon was after, like every time it was played, it was supposedly like it was a lot longer than like what the songwriter had time to like write. Like first, we saw him doing like the beginning notes, and he probably did have enough time to do like the notes for the entire name of it. But like after that, like every time the song was like played on the piano, it was definitely sounded a lot longer than probably that guy had time to write. So like but that's just something like I can notice as someone older than how I was as a kid. But other than that, with like the design of the Phantom, as well as the entire setting being like one smaller building than like an entire area, an entire town and stuff, like an entire island, like it's much more like how like single location like that, almost kind of like a single location horror movie, similar kind of like The Strangers and stuff. So like having that single location definitely makes a better sense. Not exactly claustrophobic, but like it makes more confined space, where it makes it easier to actually run into the Phantom and like get cornered by him, which again adds another horror element. Speaking of horror, look at this guy's face. The episode of Scooby Doo. I know I love Scooby Doo, but I'm only gonna put him in good. Like, yes, his face is like very, very obviously ugly there. Like not scary ugly, just like just ugly. Like, Scooby Doo, love her, very sweet Southern Belle. Although, yeah, but with her inclusion, it actually loses a lot of points because like Scooby Doo, like her first name's Scooby, so it's like everybody is thinking like she's just another relative of Scooby. So it's like this was another episode that had Scooby Doo in it. But like apparently Doo and Dumb were like they made it seem like they were in love with Scooby Doo, but like she almost kind of like she was their cousin, kind of. So it's like that entire part, like that scarred me once I kind of figured that out. And if she's not their cousin, makes it 100%. But like if they didn't want her to be like their cousin or something, then like they really needed to not have her name being Scooby Doo. Like just have it be D. Like just have it like that. Like that would really made it a lot better. And like that's something that I cannot really like get over, which is why the episode is where it is. Even if the rest of it does make it like good, especially since like it was kind of similar to like how like other plotlines would be about like kidnapping a movie star, even if in this one the star was a dog. But like another monster that was I'm gonna put the Demon Racer in iconic. Like as another one though that scared me as a kid. Like I know I'm saying a lot of these scared me as a kid, but like yes, but like not most of them didn't scare me, but like the ones that did scare me, they scared me. Ones that scared me. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 out of all these. And the ones down here, I'd say that makes me being scared of one not actually as a lot as some would think. And with the Demon Racer, there were some definitely very scary moments. Like that first driver, Conover, I think his name was, that had been kidnapped and he returned. Like when he burst through that door and he was like moaning with like the wind in his hair, like that made me jump right out of my skin when I was a kid, because I was like, oh freaking god. And I also think he does like actually have a very scary look to him, especially with like it's just his face being visible, almost kind of like with his helmet there, almost kind of like how the no-face zombie, the rest of its head is not being shown, and also actually kind of with the ghostly gondolier as well, with the hood hiding most of the face and stuff. They definitely like it adds more creepier elements to them rather than like others. Even if the four just kind of similar elements, but definitely not scary. The Demon Racer, like he also definitely seemed like a more genuine threat. Like when he had captured Shaggy, he was quite literally breaking him up in a wall, which would have killed Shaggy if he succeeded. So like he was an actual genuine threat, and he was threatening the life of Shaggy. And like when you threaten Shaggy, we're all gonna come after you. Everybody loves Shaggy and Scooby, so come after either of them. We're all gonna come after you. The fans are gonna come after you, Demon Racer. I also like other episodes that have included like race cars. It was also definitely a better one, especially with that final chase scene, since you have Shaggy and Scooby in one car, and then you have Fred, Daphne, and Velma in the other car, all against the Demon Racer. I definitely liked that kind of chase scene, especially since like Shaggy and Scooby were in like the original car that they had been in, like when Shaggy had been kidnapped. Skeletons. That was a great episode. Especially, although one thing that did actually kind of confuse me a little bit was how they definitely wanted to use the Bermuda Triangle to their advantage. Taking it as like using like the fake flying saucer to like make people just believe it was more planes going missing in the Bermuda Triangle. But the island they were using, with how it was revealed how it used to be kind of used during like in a war or something, like that kind of made no sense, because like that island was in the Bermuda Triangle, and I'm pretty sure even if a war was going on, nobody would dare go into the Bermuda Triangle. Never. So like that part maybe confused me a little bit, but like the episode itself was really good. Especially since like the skeleton men, I liked how they didn't really talk. Like sure there was some growling, but other than that they were completely silent, which added a creepy aura around them, rather than like others that either talked or just growled around. So, and plus, I also enjoyed where it was revealed where they were keeping the other pilots and stuff that they had captured. Like in other episodes where it's like the monsters or ghosts whatever like captured somebody else, the person like just like kind of just like shows up at the end untied, and like there wasn't really any type of scene of them being found or anything. So I like how in this one it showed like where the pilots were being kept, and plus it also had another very, very good Shaggy funny moment where he literally was trying to talk to them, but like they were gagged, and like one pilot was like trying to talk to him, and Shaggy's like, "Come on, speak up!" And he says it in such an innocent way that like he's being genuine rather than teasing or taunting them because of the gag, which is such a Shaggy thing to do. Like Shaggy's adorable. And like another adorable moment when the skeleton men were chasing after Shaggy and Scooby like in the boat. You have like Scooby pulling up the boat like as if he's a girl pulling up her dress to start running, and like when like Scooby starts running on water, like that was funny every time it happened. So it's like it actually did make them faster than the skeleton men, which obviously cartoon logic, but another thing to make us love Scooby Doo, he's able to outrun a motor. Oh, this episode, the one with the future, yeah, that's going right to Matt, like, the time travel part just, like, it makes the episode, like, it's just so bad. Well, like, I don't really like the episode, but, like, as I said, there's no such thing as a bad Scooby Doo episode, so even though I just kind of said it was bad, like, it's still just meh, since with Scooby, like, I will never say any of them are bad. But like, the designer, plus with the designer being kind of like an insect-like monster, like, I liked that, even if the whole, it being a time-traveling monster from the future, like, that made no sense, especially with how, when it grabbed the money, like, that didn't make any type of sense, because, like, why would a creature from the future care about money? Like, if it was to grab anything, like to try and like stop itself from going back to the future, like it would like grab the table, not really grab the money. So like that part, yeah, even in terms of cartoon logic, that makes no sense at all. Ooh, another monster that was returned from Monsters Unleashed, the Pterodactyl Ghost. Yeah, obviously that makes it go up to iconic. Like, sure, with the skeleton also were returned in that movie, but, like, it was just two of them rather than all three, which still doesn't make any sense to me. But, like, they were just used for comedy, while the Pterodactyl Ghost was an actual threat in that movie. So it's like, that really bumps up this episode, especially since, like, I enjoyed how it was. There were several episodes that like have been about like either Fred or like any of the other gang like participating in some type of contest, and this one being about Fred wanting to be a part of a hang glider competition, and one that was ironically started by the one who ended up becoming the Pterodactyl Ghost, since like it was their hang glider trips that like made people curious and like made them want to do hang gliders, like since the valley was like so perfect for it. And plus, there was also another part of the episode where it's like, for some reason, like, Pterodactyl, like, they took the time to, like, carve out a new, like, cave image that was, like, of Scooby, like, being scared and basically praying while the Pterodactyl Ghost was scaring him. Like, the fact that he took the time to, like, carve that into the wall, like, after he captured Scooby, like, that was just gold. Like, I love that. Ooh, this monster was another. It was a great episode, and also one that did. Like, he was actually scary, but I was not scared of him. And, like, mostly because, like, when I was a kid, I definitely never hid, like, my dislike of sports, so So it's like just being a ghost of a football player, I kind of just didn't really care that much in a general sense. But I can still appreciate the episode a lot. Especially since like it was unavoidable since obviously there was definitely going to be at some point some type of like sports related ghost. Like it was one that just like it was going to happen. Like eventually, like it's something that can't be avoided. Like how the Phantom was like a music like themed ghost, and like obviously like witches and insect monsters, they were gonna be a part of another stuff that was kind of obvious coming. Same with like vampires. Same with like vampires and sea creatures as well. Even if like the demon definitely unique, as well as a gator creature. And like an animal ghost. Like since animal ghosts are also not that common. But good, yeah. With the sports ghost, that was a good episode. Yeah, especially since like I also enjoyed how the ghost was like so desperate to like make their point that they kidnapped more than just one like star player. They also kidnapped like his replacement as well. So it's like that automatically got rid of that like red herring, since obviously people would think that like the star quarterback's replacement would be suspicious, but like after he disappeared, like that definitely takes like suspicion off of him. And as another point where Velma showed her genius was when she got them and the other two players out of there, where she did like her little fake equation to get them out, where she was like one canvas bag, one Scooby in the bag, one air pump it up, and one hairpin, and she basically blasted Scooby through the trapdoor. Like it was both funny, very Velma, and just Scooby being once again used as basically a guinea pig for something. But I don't think Scooby cared much, especially since like he went right to get a rope to like get the rest of them out. Snowbees, yeah, down there. But yeah, I'm not saying the episode was the episode was just kind of boring. Not really like a bad one, but it's just kind of boring. Like as creative as it was, like have like a dinosaur, like dinosaur snowbeast, rather than being like an abominable snowman like creature. Like it gets points for that, but like other than that, like I don't know, just not very creative. The episode still just, I don't know, it just felt almost phoned in a way. Even if I enjoyed the funny parts of like was actually being shown in this picture of when the snow beast was like picking up igloos to try and find like Scooby. Another part that like was actually very cute was like when Scooby ended up like being frozen from being stuck at the top of the totem pole, and like it was that lead snow dog that flirting with him that like defrosted him. Like very cute, very very cute in that moment. Like whenever Scooby kind of like melted over a female dog, it was always so cute. It was literal puppy love. Like anybody that sees anything wrong with that, something's wrong with them. Oh, the Moon Monster. That was a good episode. Especially since kind of similar to the Warlock episode. In this episode, the gang kind of just happened upon the people that were being haunted by the Moon Monster. This time it being their new friend, Kim, who supposedly had to follow an old family legend about taking like all of his inherited like jewels and stuff and throwing them into the river in order to please the Moon Monster. Like I definitely enjoyed that. Like just like I don't know, it's but like, there's just better episodes, and that's why it's in good rather than going it up to great. I also kind of like I think what I knew was like where like with other episodes where like things that some of the monsters were like on the fly or like done like while the gang was there, such as when the pterodactyl ghost like carved that like image of Scooby into the wall, or like the plan to just lock the game was definitely like a last minute thing done for like the captain. But with the Moon Monster, it had what it turned out to be the uncle like the gang found like the worn out stone carving tool. So that meant the statue like that the uncle created for himself, he had obviously done that like definitely very far in advance, like long before the gang had even gotten involved. So I kind of liked how there was just that one, rather than making it seem like it only took like, I don't know, like not too long for the statue to be made. So I like definitely like that part of it. Ooh, the Spectre. I mean, got up to iconic. Especially one of the parts that I enjoyed that like definitely made me jump was the part where when the Spectre like had gone after the lens the gang had gotten from the eye doctor glasses guy. And when he stuck his head out and he was upside down looking into the mystery machine, like that made me jump, especially since like the smile on his face like creeped the hell out of me. So like, yeah, he was a very creepy like ghost. Literally my sister's cat is meowing right now. I'm trying to make this video, kitty. So like that, there was for not just the creepiness of the Spectre. I also liked the supposed ghost of his great granddaughter Nettie, who obviously right here definitely looks like a very sweet old lady. So like yeah, it was another point where it's like there were technically two antagonists, but like it wasn't like with Katazuma and the Stone Creature, because like Nettie was shown first like almost kind of like an ally until it was later kind of revealed where it's like Nettie had supposedly died, and like so like they were talking to her ghost. So I definitely like that part where it's like it wasn't a more obvious type thing where it's like she was an antagonist, and it actually also didn't make it like she was a throwaway character. It was more she was like part of the plot, where I definitely enjoyed it. And I also actually enjoy the more realistic approach where it's like the gang had to get jobs, like because all the mystery solving was definitely not like helping them like with any type of bills or whatever. You know, if they're helping all these people, they really should get rewarded. Like especially since like they're going out of their way to like help, so like definitely should be rewarded. Like that's why like in other things with the game where it's like they're mystery incorporated, it's a business to them. And so it's like yeah, but yeah, it was really good where it's like they took these jobs, and that's why like they got involved. Beyond approach, Tar Monster is beyond approach. Like, is there really anything else I can say when other than the mask figure from Monsters Unleashed, the Tar Monster was quite frankly the biggest threat of that movie. Like sure, he wasn't as much of a threat here, but like with combining this episode with his appearance in Monsters Unleashed, it just makes him such a great monster. And plus, like with the episode as well, I liked how it was kind of shown where the Tar Monster was not able to find the treasure, even though when that was obviously what they were after. Because like you guess it was hidden in the secret room and back, but like I think it was not because the guy who turned out to be the Tar Monster. I don't think it was because he moved it there. I think it was because like that's where the treasure was hidden in the first place by the ancient people. So that was why the Tar Monster was like trying to scare everyone away, because it wanted time to find the secret location, since the map he had like did show that there was a secret room behind it. So like he wanted the time to like find the treasure, which I thought was definitely an added element, even if others have shown where it's like they take the treasure and hide it, and then they scare people away to give them time to like take it out of their hiding place. I love the fact. it gains a lot of points for the fact that it takes place in an actual location, the Smithsonian Museum. I definitely enjoyed that, especially since these are real, actual historical people. Benedict Arnold, William DeMond, Major Andre, like they're all actual historical people. So I enjoyed the uniqueness of how, rather than just kind of making stuff up for the ones or just using like an iconic, already known monster. Like, I definitely, so it's like, yeah, just using historical figures as ghosts, like, it adds a unique, iconic, like, twist to, like, a Scooby episode that's not really used very often, unless, of course, they're, like, you know, using Abominable Snowman, Sasquatch, Loch Ness Monster, like, you know, things like that. But, like, using, like, you know, like, actual historical figures, they don't really do that, which gives a lot of points to this episode. I also liked all like the other like exhibits that we saw like being run around, like the dinosaur exhibit, Bunker Hill, like so many types of like, exhibits that we saw like, the gang embracing through while running around. So like, yeah, definitely a very good episode. Oh god, what was the episode called? Bad memories going. I remember it was an all-right episode, but like I can't really like I remember the owl man. Yeah, but like I can't remember the name of this owl creature. Like that's probably gonna drive me crazy for a while, and I'm gonna have to look it up at some point. But obviously, since I can't really remember, it wasn't like anything that special. Especially like with the episode, like the Owlmen were definitely more of a threat, with the giant owl creature used more as a scare tactic, since like there wasn't really anything really controlled about it. Like sure it had the basket, but like other than that it was a balloon with a bit of an engine to make it blast forward. But so it's like it wasn't really anything that could be like steered. So it's like yeah, just use a scare tactic with the Owlmen being used for other things. This was another episode where another uncle was involved. This one being Velma's Uncle Dave, I think. Speaking of, I think it was another one of Velma's uncles where it was involved with the Vikings. But these two have a lot in common in terms of, like, no, they're not really anything special, like, with either of them. Like, yeah, they're kind of good in their own ways, but not really... Either of them are really anything like special in terms of Scooby episode. Ooh, the final episode being the cat creature, which involved an aunt instead of an uncle this time. So that gives it points in terms of uniqueness. As you've noticed, yeah, I only used one monster to represent each episode, which is why all these others are down here. And with the cat creature, that was definitely a good episode, especially since the whole fake doctor using hypnosis to trick Daphne's aunt into thinking she's the cat creature, using the little cat medallion to make her dream that she's a cat creature, which would make her believe she actually is. So she would turn herself in for the robberies, which would make the doctor get away scot-free. That's not something that's seen a lot, where, yeah, we've seen where some framing being done, or in this, with the case of the fandom, it was fake framing, making them seem like they were the ones being framed rather than how they were just simply doing that to themselves to like throw people off their path. But with this one, this person actually did do a very good frame job, and even making the person themselves believe they were the culprit. I definitely liked that, since it was a very unique plot. Another thing, there was one thing I didn't really enjoy was how there was I like the secret passageway to the cemetery, and the crowd, like, yeah, that's something that that's not as out of the box, but like there was also apparently secret passageways in the apartment building where Daphne's aunt was living. That does not make as much sense. Especially there were really no lines that made it seem like that was possible. Like there were no lines where people were like, oh, it's a very old building, it's been around for a while. Like there was not really any explanation about the apartment building themselves, which would make it seem like there was any type of passageways. If an explanation like that was given, that probably would have made it a better episode. But like, other than that, like, I also really liked the cat creature design. So it's just like, it's different from like how like the other like creatures where it's like they would get down like on all fours sometimes. Where like with this cat creature, it ran around, you know, like a regular person, even if it did have like very cat-like claws with the gloves. Even if that didn't mean that Shaggy's shirt like spent a couple of scenes ruined, but oh well. Even if we all would have loved if that was Fred instead, because like if he went around like showing some of his six-pack that he most likely has, probably would have made the episode skyrocket in popularity. And that was the Scooby Doo Show, every episode rated. If y'all can disagree with any of my rankings, you can talk about it in the comments, but these are my opinions. I make that clear once again. These are just my opinions that I'm giving. These are how I feel about them. Thank you for watching another one of my video. I hope to make more of these in the future. And Scooby Dooby Doo, I love Scooby.